The Senate will come to order. The senators will take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will retire to the gallery. Good afternoon, senators. How art thou? Good afternoon, guests. The senators and those in attendance, if you are able, please rise. We will be led in prayer this morning by the Reverend Gwen Crichton of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Richmond. Following the prayer, if everyone will please remain standing, and we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by Lynn Edelman, Journal Assistant in our Senate Clerk's office.
Let us pray. Holy and loving God, the creator and sustainer of our lives, we humbly thank you for bringing us in safety to this new day to accomplish the task you have set before us and called us to do. Draw near and behold these your faithful servants of the Commonwealth of Virginia, gathered in this special Senate session of the General Assembly today. Pour upon them your spirit of wisdom, grace, and truth to exercise their authority to govern our common life with integrity and justice. Lead them and guide them with your continual help, that they may provide for the welfare and flourishing of your people in Virginia, especially the most vulnerable among us. Bless the activities, deliberations, and decisions made in this session today with your most gracious favor. May all that takes place here fulfill your divine purpose for creating a more loving, peaceful, and just world. All these things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present, please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You do not have a quorum, Madam President.
Chair recognizes the junior senator from Enrico.
Madam President, I move that the Senate recess until 2 p.m.
Without objection, the Senate stands at recess until 2 p.m. Today?
Today.
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 We did not. Because we did not have a quorum, we will again call the roll. The clerk will call the roll. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam President. Senate Journal for Monday, May 13, 2024.
The senator from Norfolk, Senator Williams Graves, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All those in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 1.
Ayes 37, noes 1. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will call the calendar. Chair recognizes Senator Surville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Good afternoon, Madam President.
Good afternoon.
Madam President, I move the memorial resolutions on pages 1, just page 1, SR 618 through 624 be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof with the understanding that any senator desiring to remove a resolution from the block shall do so when after the clerk has read the number of the or the title of the resolution.
The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on page 1, Senate Resolution 618 through Senate Resolution 624 be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution. All those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will now read the title of the memorial resolution.
Senate Resolution 618, celebrating the life of Melvin Eugene Walker. Senate Resolution 620, celebrating the life of Francis Xavier O'Leary. Senate Resolution 6...
President,
For what purpose does the senator from Arlington rise?
I ask that Senate Bill 620 or Senate Resolution 620 be removed from the block.
Without objection, Senate Resolution 620 is out of the block.
Senate Resolution 621, celebrating the life of Stuart Hamilton Gamage. Senate Resolution 624, celebrating the life of John Jacobus Allweiss.
The question is, with the remaining resolutions, accepting Senate Resolution 620, which is out of the block, the resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolutions, please rise. The resolutions are agreed to.
Commending resolutions. We got to go back to. Oops, sorry.
Senator Surville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County. Senator Favola, the senator from Arlington.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I would move that this memorial resolution pass, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, Francis Xavier O'Leary was elected treasurer for Arlington County for a number of years, and he served with distinction in that position. I do want to note that he was very active in the State Treasurers Association and actually encouraged the state treasurers to adopt policies that were effective in reducing delinquency payments. He worked with families or individual taxpayers early on if they showed challenges in paying their tax bills. So he was very creative and actually instituted many policies and practices that I think benefited not just Arlington, but jurisdictions across the Commonwealth. And lastly, I will just say he was somewhat of an institution in Arlington. He was a bit of a character in a positive way. He always had something to say. He's certainly not a retiring person at all, shy or retiring person. And he loved making predictions about who would win elections. That was his forte. So with that presentation or explanation, Madam President, I would move that the memorial resolution pass. Thank you.
The resolution will be agreed to in the usual manner. Those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution, please rise. The resolution is agreed to. Senator Sorovell, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Madam President, I move the commending resolutions on page 2. Senate Resolution 615 to 623 be considered in the block by a voice vote. Waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring the resolution be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution.
The question is, shall the commending resolutions on page 2, Senate Resolution 615 through Senate Resolution 623, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will now read the number of the resolutions that are before us in the block.
Senate Resolution 615, 616, 617, 619, 622, 623.
All in favor? The question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolutions are agreed to.
Madam President.
Senator Sorovell.
Hey, Madam President, I rise for 2 parliamentary inquiries.
The senator may state them.
Thanks. The first one, Madam President, am I correct that with regard to memorial resolution, it's the custom and practice of the body to only speak the resolutions of prior members of the body or the House? Sorry. Okay, and employees and statewide officials.
The senator is correct.
Great, thank you. Second parliamentary inquiry.
The senator may state it.
Would this be the appropriate point in the calendar for any members to note the journal the absence of any members from today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you.
Does anyone wish to rise? The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Perry.
Good afternoon, Madam President.
Good
Madam
afternoon.
President, I rise to request leave of absence for my seatmate, the senior senator from Loudoun County. He is away on pressing personal business.
The record will so note it, Senator. Senator Hashmi, senator from Chesterfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask that the journal reflect that my seatmate, the senator from Northern Fairfax County, is away on pressing personal business.
Thank you, Senator. It will be so noted. Senator Sorovell.
Thank you, Madam President. Inquiry of the clerk. Does that complete the calendar?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate?
Madam
Chair
President.
recognizes Senator Reeves, the
Thank you, Madam
senator
President.
from
I rise
Orange.
for a point of personal privilege.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement, Madam President. Today and what's transpired today really has shaken me to the core about an issue that I know is important to many of us in here, actually everybody in here, and we've allowed this disease, this mold, to grow on good policy, Madam President. We we're going to have to rely, unfortunately, on our friends in the House to probably clean this bill up or clean this matter up with regard to VMSDEP. And the real victims in this whole thing are going to be those families that are affected by it. You know, we made several decisions several years ago, Madam President, that we said we are going to be the most veteran-friendly state in the whole union. And we put a program in a bipartisan fashion where many members on both sides of the aisle voted co-patron, chief patron. We got those bills through, and we've been chugging along. And we put a program in that is hugely successful. It's successful. By all stretch imagination, we're growing. We're keeping our 700,000 some odd veterans, and the program is thriving. And now we're at a bump in the road where it's growing so well that we no longer think we can afford it. But I don't know if that's the question we should ask, Madam President. The question we should ask is, do we still want to be the #1 state in the country for veterans? I know our governor's focused on that. That's why he's worked so hard to get us back here, to get this fixed and get moving forward. That's why all of us voted to give that tax cut to all of our veterans last year so we can keep more of them here. So who do we affect today? All I can think about, Madam President, you and I had a great opportunity, and many of you all know because you were praying for us. We just spent some time in a country that's under war, under threat daily. 116 missiles fired, and every day we were there. And a whole country sent their parents, all their children, everybody that they have wore the cloth of their country if they were military age to go fight for their existence. I don't think those folks would have any problem making sure that they're taking care of those they're sending forward. And it pains me that we're having this discussion today. We've spent $40,000, $50,000 to bring us all here today, and we're not hearing a bill, which also bothers me, Madam President. And I just have to get it out there that it is not customary that we pocket veto bills in the Senate. We don't do that, but we've done that today, and that bothers me. And I think the former minority leader often said, once you get rid of a custom in the Senate, it's very hard to get it back, and I'm afraid we've done that today. Madam President, I think the way forward for us now is to sit and reflect, and I think there's going to be people that are going to start invading your inbox and letting you know how they feel. We heard a personal testimony in Finance Committee today from a young girl who had the gump to be able to stand up there and so poised and spoke to what inaction is going to do to her family. And now, as many of our citizens that qualify for this program and their children are watching us today on the floor, our inactions speak volumes. So unless we want to change our direction, we are no longer going to be the state, the most veteran-friendly state. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Durant, the senator from Stafford.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator Macion.
Thank you. Madam President, I also want to speak on the issue on the VMSDEP program. As I did the day that we passed this budget, I stand today to address that critical issue affecting the military dependent program recipients, which provides essential education benefits to families for our fallen and disabled service members. It was recently altered in a manner that bypasses the normal legislative process. And Madam President, you might remember that I spoke about that. These changes were not only ill-considered, but also unjustly forced through the budget without proper vetting or public input. As representatives of the people, we have a duty to ensure transparency. We have a duty for accountability and the due process in all legislative matters. The recent modifications to the VMSDEP program were pushed through the budget, an act that undermines the integrity of the legislative process. Such significant changes should have been debated, they should have been scrutinized, they should have been voted on as a standard bill, allowing for comprehensive discussion and public participation. The manner in which these changes were enacted were not only procedurally flawed, but also morally questionable. We owe it to the families of our fallen heroes and disabled veterans to treat their benefits with the utmost respect and consideration. By bypassing the standard legislative process, we have effectively silenced the voices of those who rely on those benefits and those who represent them. Furthermore, the changes to the VMSDEP have introduced additional burdens on surviving families, making it harder for them to access the educational support they were promised. These families have already sacrificed so much. It is our responsibility to ensure that these promises made to them are honored, not rescinded without the due process. It is not only the Gold Star families and disabled veterans that were affected. We also place unnecessary burdens on our law enforcement and our first responders. I call upon my colleagues in the Senate to join me in voting in favor of this. That's what we should have done today. We should not have gone through and had this bill pocketed. It's really a disservice to the Commonwealth, to our taxpayers, that we've been called down here to essentially get nothing accomplished. Let's not forget the values of our democracy, the fairness, transparency, accountability, by reverting the VMSDEP to its original form and committing to a thorough study, which, Madam President, I have already done by asking, and I'm grateful that the governor appointed me to the task force, to uphold these values and demonstrate our unwavering support to the families of those who have given so much to our country. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there any other business to come before the Senate? Senator Suderline.
Madam President, rise for point of personal privilege.
The senator from Colonial Heights has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, we've got a lot of folks who are here in the Capitol today in mid-June who otherwise wouldn't normally be here on their summer vacations. These are folks who woke up early this morning, traveled to the Capitol from all over the Commonwealth because they thought they were coming here to be able to speak on, be heard before their elected representatives, this legislative body, on a bipartisan bill, a bill that has bipartisan chief co-patrons in this body, that is supported and co-patroned by everybody on this side of the aisle and several of our friends on the other side of the aisle. It is a bill that has a majority support in the state Senate. And yet, despite these folks getting up early today and driving here, they didn't get to have that bill heard. Their elected leaders, their elected legislature, didn't take it up, didn't consider it. And that's a problem. And so we're all here today. We've all come here as well as the folks who are here to support a full repeal of the changes to this program. And we don't have to leave. The day is still young, and there's still a whole lot of work that can be accomplished. We don't have to adjourn. We can stay here, and we can get this thing fixed. We don't have to wait on the House to come back on the 28th and fix it, although they will. And we can come back after that and do more work on it and get it fixed over here, and maybe we'll have to do that. But we are here today, and the people who are here to have this bill heard today are here. And we should honor that, we should respect that, and we shouldn't be adjourning before this important work has actually been done here in the Senate. Now, if this body does adjourn, and I hope it doesn't, the governor may have to call us back. We may have to call ourselves back. But we should not be leaving with this important work still left to be done. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm speaking on a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly am very attentive to the remarks that have been made by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And I, along with everybody else in the Senate, I am very proud that Virginia has always been supportive of our veterans. We have been a veteran-friendly state, and we have provided enormous opportunities for our veterans, for their survivors, and their dependents. And I think we are all very proud of that. I also think that as lawmakers, we need to take our jobs very seriously and always evaluate programs that we offer. We should always look to see if they're effective, if they are serving the people that are intended to be served. If, in fact, the individuals who are being served, if they are willing and able to continue in the program, is it benefiting all of us? What we are asking today, I believe, is to take a pause and to maybe continue with our current program, but in the meanwhile, we have a work group set up. It was established at the request of the Chair of Finance. So 5 members, bipartisan, in the Senate, can actually take testimony from individuals who would be affected by the Virginia Military Survivors and Dependents Program, to hear about their stories, to hear how they've used the program, to understand more, to hear about federal programs that may be available, to hear what other states might be doing to see if Virginia can improve. So at the end of the day, we will have offered a full and robust hearing so all Virginians could better understand the programs we provide, and so we can better understand how to best manage them, how to make them most effective, and how to really help those who are intended to be helped by the program. So I'm hoping that we can participate, every one of us, in this work group with an open mind and an open heart, and actually be willing to be good policymakers, to be compassionate, and yes, and to honor our veterans. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Locke, the senator from Hampton.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise on a point of personal privilege, please.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I believe that on May 13th, we voted on a budget bill. And in that budget bill was language with regard to the VMSDEP program. And that budget passed on this floor with 39 of us voting in favor of it. And on that day, the governor signed that budget with that language included in that budget. And it is unfortunate that the discussion today has shifted from policy to politics. And politics, since that day, has been overshadowing any discussion of policy and addressing policy at all. It has become more of a political discussion than a policy discussion. And many of us have become more interested in hyperbole and not addressing any profit solutions or compromise. And we should always be mindful that when we start pointing fingers at others, 4 of those fingers are pointing back at ourselves. Something could have been accomplished here today, but many colleagues are not willing to accept compromise or move forward on any compromise because it's easier to play politics than address policy. It's easy to say we're all here today and nothing was accomplished. Something could have been accomplished had there not been an attitude of my way or the highway. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator McGuire, the senator from Goochland.
Madam President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
You know, actually, I was the one vote that voted against the budget, and I understand that mistakes can be made. But with our veterans, our military, we wouldn't have a country. Some people risk their time, and some people risk their money, but our veterans oftentimes risk their life or give their life for our freedom. I think that it's clear with the debate that's going on that there's a difference between an entitlement and a promise. And you can imagine that if you were to die in combat, at least you know that your family members, your kids, or your wife are taken care of. And so I'm in full support of a repeal of what happened in the budget And then I hope that we can, I guess, like you said, the House may be the bill that we'll clean it up with. I wish we would. I'm supposed some of you guys, it might be a secret, but I'm supposed to be out campaigning right now. But our veterans are so important. I had to come here today to support them. And I was hoping that we would get something today. But hopefully we'll get something done soon. But I ask everyone here to make sure you support this important program. It is a promise. It is not an entitlement. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Madam President Ross, for point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been practicing law for a long time, and at the beginning of my legal career, I would meet with clients and we'd go into court and we'd fight for the outcome that they would like. And sometimes I would win. And sometimes in that win, I would tell the clients not to say anything, to be quiet, just sit there, not put any evidence on, and the judge will rule the way we want. And Madam President, as I went through my legal career, I've learned that that's not always the best outcome for your client. That sometimes being able to tell their story, to tell their position, to be heard in front of the judge is just as important as the ruling the court will make at the end of the day. Madam President, as we look at this issue, there are a number of people that have heartfelt, strong, emotional feelings because of a myriad of reasons. Things their family members have experienced, things they've experienced, things that they've seen in their lifetime. And those feelings are one that they carry through this process. And Madam President, as we go through the legislative process, one of the things that makes Virginia great is we're a citizen legislature. We're here for 60 or 46 days, and we do a lot of stuff in a very short period of time. We walk away from our families and careers in order to be here. And as we go through that process, we don't always get it right. We try. We spend a lot of time. Maybe y'all spend more time with me than you would care to 2 months out of the year. But Madam President, we try to get the best result possible. But as we look at this particular process, it is one where those individuals who have heartfelt emotion, the things that their families have struggled, the things that they have seen, they did not get to be heard. As this moved through a budget process at the end, particularly as we went from the regular session to special session, they didn't come to committee meetings. There were no public hearings going forward. They did not have their ability to make their voice heard. So, Madam President, as we go through this continued process, I think we all want to find a way to take care of our veterans and their families. But we need to do it in a way that they feel like their voice is being heard. We strongly feel that at this point, the way their voice can be heard is for us to put the repeal in, take it back to the way it was, and then have those conversations. Make sure those individuals have the opportunity to express their positions, talk about what their experiences are, talk about the impact to their family, and then we can go through a deliberative process of deciding what the best path forward is. So, Madam President, I think we all want to come to a solution. We might have different ideas on what that solution is. But in order for us to make sure that our veterans and their families and dependents have the ability to have their voice heard, we need to start from the point of taking the legislation back to where it was and then having those conversations, not doing it the other way around.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Madam President. Point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened today and why it happened, and about some history, because I think it's important everybody remembers the history of what got us here. And I want to emphasize that we're doing everything we can right now to basically preserve this program and preserve its continued viability, because that's become a serious issue with some of the success it's seen. This program was started in 1930. And the reason it was started was because men didn't come back from World War I. And I say men because women didn't serve in the U.S. Army or the military back then. And it was put in place to ensure that if somebody was killed in World War I, that their children would be able to get an education. It was later expanded to include people that were 90% disabled or more in combat, and also included to protect the families of our fallen law enforcement and firefighters, our first responders. And I think everybody here agrees that amongst everybody, those are some of the most solemn commitments we've made and the ones that must be protected. In 2019, there were some changes made to the program. It was proposed by my seatmate here, Democrat from Prince William County, by my former seatmate, Delegate Torian, in the House. It was passed by 2 Republican-controlled chambers and signed by Democratic Governor Northam. These expansions that were done were drafted and led by Democrats and adopted by this body in a bipartisan manner. At the time, go look it up, the fiscal impact statement said it would cost $5.4 million. That's what the Department of Planning and Budget said the impact would be on our universities. The overall program cost at the time was $12 million. Last year, the program cost $65 million. The program has been successful. It's been marketed by the Department of Veteran Services in a way that I don't think anybody ever imagined. I don't think they imagined what the response was going to be. And the response has been so overwhelming. In many ways, it's jeopardized the viability of the program because a lot of our smaller schools cannot afford this. And I just want you all to understand the kinds of things that you could actually do with this program. I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Virginia Law School. And at the time, Commonwealth of Virginia actually used to put money in if you went to UVA Law. My tuition was only about $8,500 a year, but since then, the state pulled its money out. Tuition at UVA Law is $72,000 a year. This program will pay for anybody to go to UVA Law. Average median income when you graduate from UVA Law is $225,000 a year. That's the median. I barely made 10% of that, by the way. But I would just note that I don't think at the time the program was enacted, anybody contemplated that it would be used for something like that, or to go to UVA Darden at $58,000 a year, or used to go to UVA Medical School at whatever they cost now, about $40,000 a year. And so the program has been successful in ways. I don't think a lot of people realize that people out of state would benefit from the program. I don't think people realize that 20% of the program cost would go to graduate school. The purpose of this program was to get folks a college education so they could get started in life. These are problems that have been recently highlighted, and a lot of the things that have led to the growth in cost, which has jeopardized, again, our ability to be able to support the families of those who died in combat or died in the line of duty out on the street or in a fire. Because of that, the governor proposed changes this year through the senator from Spotsylvania's legislation. We obviously looked at those, and I guess he reconsidered and turned it into a study, and then changes were made in the budget. A budget that passed 39-1 and 94-6. 39-1 and 94-6. Governor signed the budget the very day it was passed. He didn't make line item amendments. He didn't do a line item veto. Instead, he immediately came out and he attacked the bill he just signed, which is kind of confusing to some of us, but in any event, that's what happened. Ever since then, this caucus has been trying to do what we can to preserve the viability of this program. We introduced we proposed legislation which restored the Gold Star families and the line of duty benefits. People whose families were killed in combat, families whose loved ones were killed in combat, killed in the line of duty, or killed serving as a firefighter. Restore them to what the pre-budget changes were. We're going to preserve the benefits for those folks. We provided guidance. We provided language that was going to clarify all the confusion about the grandfathering to ensure that people who are waitlisted or want to go to community college would be able to receive the benefits that they signed up for before the budget was adopted. Because the governor has not issued any guidance to answer these folks' questions. We wanted to provide that clarity. We wanted JLARC to provide an independent analysis of this so we'd get the data and the information necessary to make intelligent decisions of how to correct it if people think it was done wrong. We also gave the governor a deadline to issue guidance so that if there's any further guidance needed, people would get it. And what happened? People didn't want to do that. So what do? We made a second proposal. We said, well, if people don't want to protect people who died in combat, the families of people who died in combat, people don't want to absolutely protect line of duty, people don't want to protect our firefighters, our police who were killed, you don't want to get clarity, you don't want to get guidance, you don't want to get it right now, we will delay the enactment of this legislation. We will delay the effectiveness of it for 90 days. We will appoint a work group, and we will get JLARC to look at this, to create a process for these families to have the input they're asking for to get us to a solution. The answer we got to that is we're not doing that either. So here we stand. We're doing everything we can to try to give these folks the opportunity they have to be heard, to have their say, so that everybody, we can try to reach the bipartisan consensus that got this program expanded, to try to get a bipartisan consensus to keep it viable so that we can protect the benefits that I think we've offered to folks, and do it in a way that doesn't overly burden our universities and the people who go to these schools. So we don't have people on financial aid who are already struggling to meet our tuition obligations overly burdened with this obligation. We need to take the politics out of this, folks. We've made two different offers to get this done, and we can if people would just be reasonable. We're not a full-time legislature. We can't be in session all the time. None of us signed up to do that. But we've come up with a process, and we hope we can get this done sooner or later. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Suderline, the senator from Roanoke.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. It's primary day in Virginia, and we're here. And I appreciate that the senator from Goochland is here as well. But I'm reminded of a nomination 10 years ago this week. I was heading down to Tazewell County to go to a mass meeting that had been called just a week before, and over 800 people showed up. And when it was all said and done, the winner, by a large margin, he went on the first ballot in a four-way race, was then Delegate Ben Chafin, who won that nomination, went on and won the election, and served admirably here. And a few years later, there was a significant fight in this legislature on a budgetary issue. And the majority caucus had a position. In the majority caucus in the Senate was the Republicans. It was different than the position that was clearly held by a majority in the House of Delegates and the Democrat governor. And Senator Chafin had a different view than most of us in the majority caucus. And when that bill came up in Senate Finance, Senator Norman worked to have procedural work on it, but he allowed it to be docketed. And it was allowed to be voted on. And I didn't like that. I was a member of the majority party. I disagreed with it. But the reality was, every member of the minority caucus and a sufficient members of the majority caucus supported it. It passed, and it became the law of Virginia, because that's the way democracy should work. We talk, and we just heard about taking the politics out of things. And we heard views that are legitimate views to articulate on this concept. But we have a bill that right now has public support from a majority of members on this floor. And we didn't allow it to be heard in a committee that has a 10-5 majority. You heard my thoughts on that previously, that in a chamber that's 21-19, we have a 10-5 committee. That's not enough. That's pretty undemocratic to begin with. We're now not even going to hear bills that we have a public support from a majority of folks here. So we can talk about taking the politics out of things, but this is something that had bipartisan consensus. And we should have voted on it today, and I wish that we had followed the example. And that's what I keep thinking about as I think about my long drive to Tazewell 10 years ago today. Thank you, Madam President.
The senior senator from Prince William, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam President. Rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator may say on.
Thank you, Madam President. It's partly because of the 2019 legislation that I chief patron that we're here and struggling with some of the data sets. And yes, I think Madam President, our chair of finance is doing a part of her job to the Commonwealth is to figure out all the competing needs. And I appreciate the one thing that was important that I've heard on the task force for the governor, I've heard repeatedly from constituents, I've heard from our own members, which is the need for the data to better understand, independent of whether or not we got to a different place that I wanted to be today, or we figure out in the future, we do need to understand the data set in terms of what is the cohort, the number of kids that have parents that went through post 9/11, went through the war and terror that served. We do need to forecast that because our numbers have been off from the beginning. That work has been ordered by Madam Chair to continue to advance. So there is work that will be moving forward, and I'm grateful that she's asking for that data. JLARC is our Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission, that is the respected independent group that is not biased on data from one agency or another, but looks at the raw data and looks at the trends and can provide us with the legislature the information we need to best make decisions. And I know that's what everyone here is interested in doing. And so it is my hope that as the work continues, because there is still work that needs to continue, whether we passed one version or another today, the work needs to continue. And what I've heard is that every one of you is committed to that process. And it's my hope that we have those hearings. I know the work group, I think, Madam Chair, is still moving forward. We are still going to proceed with gathering data, with hearing people, because that's what's most important. I had very similar issues and challenges of process. And I think we all do. And sometimes, as the senator from Hanover said, yes, the process can be short and short-sighted at times, and we don't get things right. But I think if we have the data that helps drives, and we do let a process that has input from families, looking at the data with us, rolling up the sleeves, we can get this chamber and indeed our entire General Assembly into a much better place together. And I'm hoping that's what we can focus on, because our citizens of the Commonwealth do need to be heard, and we do need to share the data from independent sources. That way our veterans' families can understand it, we can understand it, and we can be better informed on how to make decisions together. And so I just want to, Madam President, just thank the Chair of Finance for recognizing what the important next steps are. We've got to dig in, and we can't waste time. Despite differences today, it's time for us to still move forward to solutions, because it's all in our best interest to do so, and I know it's the due diligence of the Chair that's trying to achieve that, Madam President. Thank you.
Senator Obenshain, the senator from Rockingham.
Madam Chairman, Madam President, point of personal privilege.
The senator may continue.
Madam President, members of the Senate, I too am saddened that we're leaving here today without a solution to this problem. But let me leave you with a couple of my thoughts before we come back, I hope very soon. I hope in the next couple of weeks to try and adopt a solution to this problem. First of all, I, like everybody else in here, I've read and I guess listened to through the media some very candid conversations that have taken place over the course of the past few weeks about this change that worked its way through the budget process without a whole lot of discussion and conversation. And I know it didn't emanate from this side, just from those articles and those media sources. But some of those comments indicated that, what happened in this budget, it couldn't have happened anywhere else. It could only happen in a budget. And there's a problem with that. Those candid comments indicated that if this were a bill, it would never have survived. And I think that is probably 100% accurate. If it had been a bill that went through the committee process and had to be debated on the floor, the language that passed in the House budget and ultimately passed as part of the compromise that was, by the way, part of the deal was that there would be no amendments, that there would be no gubernatorial amendments to that portion of the budget or any portion of the budget, that it was a take it or leave it proposition. So the governor didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on that language. It was language that was imposed. Now, we talk about the viability of the program. The viability of the program. Now let's talk about that for just a second. The viability of the program is threatened. Why? Because it's costing too much money. Okay? So is that money that we've appropriated in the budget? No, it is not. Part of the problem is that we have made a promise to our veteran community, but we haven't put our money where our mouth is. We have an unfunded promise to the veterans and their family members of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We passed this program and said, colleges and universities, you just suck it up. And we're not going to increase your funding no matter whether you have one family member or survivor or 1,000 of them. We're not paying for it, you pay for it. That's not the way we're supposed to do it. We just passed a budget where we were flush with cash. And we funded a lot of really worthy things. We had the opportunity to put up or shut up. We had the opportunity to fund this budget item. And I wish we had. And I hope that as we continue to look at this, we look at the cost of it and how it's being allocated as well. And if it's truly something that's worthy, and I think it is, we need to fund our priorities. There are a lot of things that we put in these budgets every year that, extend well beyond the things that you and I, that many of us consider to be major budget priorities. This budget that was adopted on May 13, it was signed. 39 of us voted for it. I voted for it. Most of my colleagues did. We had one prescient individual over here in the corner, but all of us voted for it. And I confess that, this is not the first mistake I've made. And I hope some of you will make the same confession. I remember coming back for the blue laws, right? We make mistakes occasionally. We learned since May 13 that this language is very problematic. It's very problematic. And part of the reason we learned it is because we didn't go through the committee process and it didn't receive the full vetting and full consideration. And the easy solution is, let's just repeal it and come back in January and see what we can figure out through the legislative process. And I hope that in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to get together on this and decide we're going to come back and we're going to do exactly that. And to suggest that it's just a handful of people who are saying no, I would respectfully submit that's maybe not the most accurate characterization, because in fact, as I understand it, virtually every member of the House of Delegates, Republican, Democrat, they all agree that this just needs to be repealed. The governor agrees it needs to be repealed. I think a majority of the members in this body believe that it just needs to be repealed. Those who are saying it just needs to be repealed are not the ones who are saying it's my way or the highway. So I hope that over the next week or 10 days or whatever it takes, that we'll think about some of these things and that we will decide that this is a priority and we're going to figure out a way to make this work for the families of our fallen heroes and the family members of our disabled veterans. I hope that we can get together like we have done so many times. This is not a Republican issue and a Democratic issue. It's not a liberal or conservative issue. This is a Virginian issue. This is an American issue. We should link arms and fix this and fix it soon.
Senator Stewart, the senator from King George.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I stand among those today who would confess that I made a mistake. I voted for the budget, and I, at the last minute, learned that there were some concerns about it, but I still think we had a very good budget, and I think we had a very good leader for that budget. Unfortunately, I think we made a mistake on this particular issue, and I think the simple fix is to just repeal those changes now. I wish we'd done it today, and then come back in January and have hearings and let people have their voice heard. If there was any question on anybody's mind in finance this morning as to whether or not we made a mistake, it should have been removed when you heard that young lady speak. If that didn't impress you and tug on your heartstrings, then I don't know quite how to answer that. But she certainly moved me, and I think we have a responsibility to help those children, because there's some of them that aren't going to be able to go to school now as a result of that. And some may say, oh gosh, you know, they'll just miss a year, but you know, things change, life moves on, you don't know what's going to happen. So there are real life consequences as a result of this, and I hope and I pray that we're going to come back and we're going to get this fix done and move on with this. We all know there are changes that need to be made, but it is the process. It's the process of having people's voices heard and us listening to them. That's what a citizen legislature is all about. I have to take a little bit of issue with my friend, the majority leader, because what I heard him say was, there was a proposal made and it was rejected. There was another proposal made and it was rejected. And then I believe he said, and I quote, "We are doing everything we can do to fix this and keep this program viable." I assume that the majority leader meant his caucus, as if to imply that we were not. But I would remind the senator from Northern Fairfax, Madam President, that he is not, because all he had to do was hear the bill in finance this morning, and I suspect it would have gone out on a majority vote, and we would have voted off this floor this afternoon. So I stand to correct the gentleman that he is not doing everything to try to resolve this issue, but I sure wish he would.
Senator DeSteff, the senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Madam President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, the VMSIP program, and not just the VMSIP program, but the impact it has on our law enforcement members. See, when we were here on the 13th, and we passed a budget with 39 people saying yes, but in there, we did this thing called yellow sheet. And a yellow sheet means that, hey, I really don't want to affect the overall budget, because I think the gentlelady, I think the senior senator from Portsmouth, my friend, who I believe is a gentle lady and is a very good friend, but I don't want to insult anyone saying the term gentle lady if folks find that insulting, so I apologize for that. But she's my friend from Portsmouth. She put together a fantastic budget, and I've talked to her about this, and I've talked to some of my friends over there, and they know, and my friend from Hampton, the senator from Hampton, knows my passion when it comes to children and education. And, I mean, you know, we're on the other side of the aisle. We may be on the other side, but we're friends. And I've got to tell you, on this program with our fallen military members, and truly not just, it doesn't cover just those who lost their life in battle. This covers those who have been in battle and gone and seen things and done things that truly came back with demons that they had to figure out how to deal with internally. And some of those demons they just couldn't get rid of over time, so they dealt with them, whether it was drugs, alcohol, or suicide in the end. And I've got a lot of friends who that happened to. And yesterday and this morning, I was talking to some friends, and we were going over some of the accidents, whether they were in training and really would not come into effect with the original bill that was or concept that was presented here today, which those folks, their children still wouldn't be covered. And I really have a hard time with that, because as we were going through different people, Mario and Scott and Van Wilson and some others, and Tommy Valentine, the senior chief that I actually served with. But, I just counted 26 people, not to include our law enforcement or our firefighters who died of cancer. But these are people I served with. And, I know some folks think, hey, this is political. It's not political with me. This is personal. It's personal because these are my friends. These are people I served with. These are people who wore the cloth of this nation and fought for our ability to stand up and say what's on our mind. We don't have to agree with them, but they fought for that ability for us to say what's on our mind. And they lost their life either in combat, and some not for 2, 3, or 4 years after they got back and retired. And they just couldn't deal with those demons and ended up committing suicide in the end. But these were my friends. These are people I served with, and my law enforcement officers. And heck, one of our Virginia Beach firefighters we lost because of cancer, and his family's covered under this. But had we passed the original bill today, not the Reeves bill, but the other one that was proposed, they wouldn't be covered. They wouldn't be covered under this. The only way these people are covered is with a true full repeal. And I'm very fortunate that on the study, the senator and my friend from Portsmouth put me on to help do this. And this is one of the areas I'm super passionate about. And if you can't tell, children, their education, and our military members, I'm very, very passionate about this. And that's why when we were here on the 13th, I talked to my friends on the other side of the aisle. I talked to my friends on this side of the aisle, and I asked them to yellow sheet it. And both sides, we yellow sheeted it. We said, no, we're against this, because as I talked on this floor, I said there's unintended consequences in this. And I don't believe we've had a chance to really flush it all out. So I'm glad we're going to have the opportunity to truly go back and flush this out and really work on the details of doing this. But I know I may be going on a little bit, but truly this isn't political. This is personal. These were my friends. These were my family. These were my brothers and sisters who are no longer with us. And we made a promise to them. We promised to take care of their families. And I believe, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I keep saying, look, a promise made is a promise kept. These people promised to put their lives on the line, and they did just that. We promised to take care of their families. I believe we should do just that. When we look at our priorities, we should put the money into our funding and fund our priorities. To me, this is a priority. This is a huge priority of ours. This is a huge priority of the Commonwealth. And the reason that this is such a priority, because a promise made is a promise kept. Now, I'll tell you, the Commonwealth, and we talk about how this program has grown and how the Commonwealth, with our Department of Veterans Affairs, has marketed this program. And they've done a great job marketing this program. We've won awards for the way we've implemented this program. The Commonwealth has won awards of it. Now we're saying, hey, it's a little too expensive. Maybe we need to back it down. Okay, well, I'm happy to have that conversation, but maybe we shouldn't market it as so much, and we shouldn't accept these awards if we're thinking that it's getting too big. Now, I served in Desert Storm 1, and a lot of my friends who I served with, well, there's about half of us that are left. For the other half, for whatever reason, they didn't come back with us, or their demons overtook their lives one way or another, and they're just not with us anymore. But the promise we made to them was to take care of their families. And again, I believe a promise made is a promise kept. Now, on these individuals, I remember them. I mean, I served with them. We fought together. These are the folks who, they're just not with us. And I know that those folks I served with, their children are now of college age. So for the next few years, we're going to see that increase in this program. And I'm okay with that. And I know that there's going to be some sacrifices to have to pay for this and keep that promise. I truly understand that. I truly know that. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with going through the budget with my friend from Portsmouth. And, I mean, I think the world of her, and I think she did a fantastic job with the budget. But I think that this is a program that we truly do need to look at. And, you know, in the end, I think about my friends that are on this list of 24, my friends in the fire department who aren't with us because they lost their life because of cancer, and a couple of them literally took an early medical retirement. They spent less than 3 years with us, and then they're gone. And their children are very young, so we are going to have to cover them in a few years. But if we modify this program, their children won't be covered. And my heart hurts because of that. So when I think about this and the promise we made to them and their families, I think that we need to keep that promise. And I think about those who've donned the uniform of this country, of our cities, counties, and towns, whether it's police, law enforcement, EMS. But for those who made the ultimate sacrifice, we should take care of their children. And we've been doing it since 1930, and I think we need to continue doing it. So, Madam President, I'm sorry to drone on so long, but I'm not making this political. I'm making this personal. And when we hear these stories, when we see my friends and the people I served with, like Jay Redmond, who came out, he was shot 8 times. He's gone through 90-something operations, disfigured, and his children use this program. He's one of the guys I served with. These are my friends. These are the guys that I think the world of. And girls, I think the world of. So when we made a promise to them, I really think we need to keep that promise. Thank you very much. And if anyone took personal offense to what I said, I apologize for that. And, you know, my friends from Hampton and Portsmouth, you know, I've had a lot of conversations with them, and they know that when it comes to children and our education, that, man, I'm going to fight, and we're going to be there, and we're going to smile in the end. But it's not going to be easy. But when we make a promise, we need to keep it. Thank you.
Just a reminder to the senators that it is the rule and tradition of the Senate that during points of personal privilege, one is to remain in one's seat. And if one does move around, it is to find the closest seat until the senator has finished speaking. Chair recognizes Senator Rome, senator from Western Prince William.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, as one of the co-patrons for SB 6003 as well as SB 6006, I signed on to that because I agree with the underlying policy. That was the point. And when my constituents reached out, unanimously from my constituents, this is what they wanted. And my job, just like all 40 of us, is to represent our constituents. That's bottom line, period, right? At the same time, I am also someone who very much recognizes, okay, what do we do to move the ball forward? And the first thing I just want to say on this is that I know that the chair for finance of the Senator from Portsmouth has put in countless hours, 7 days a week, sometimes 6:30 on a Sunday morning, as she was telling us, you know, working and working and working. I have no doubt that she cares. There's no question. And at the same time, when legislators have disagreements, policy disagreements in particular, eliminate all the partisan stuff, all the policy or all the politics stuff. When we have that, one of the things that we are assigned to do is to find a way to move the ball forward. And even as someone who signed on to SB 6006, which was really what I think kind of where everyone who supported that policy was kind of, coalesced around, that did not come out of committee today. It's not what's on the floor today. And we know that. So what moves the ball forward from there? What's the next best option? The next option from there is if we had that suspension that we talked about before, we have the work group. that the senator from Arlington chairs, that the senior senator from Prince William and I would both be on, as well as the senator from Orange and the senior senator from Virginia Beach be on. Great. We've got great working relationships with every one of these members. Absolutely honored and privileged to serve on that. If we were to allow that to go forward today, that does not only buy us time on this, at the same time, the harm that has been mentioned by a number of members today about keeping the current budget process in place, that does not go into effect, at least until the work group comes back and makes a recommendation for the body to act on. And if so, then we can come back here and we can work based on that recommendation. And the most important part of that is that will allow that open, transparent process where the families, where everyone gets to weigh in along that time, especially above all, our constituents weigh in and they tell us, okay, this is what we would like you to do on the policy-wise. And then when we say, all right, here's the budgetary numbers that we're working with, what do we do? Do we need a new dedicated revenue stream? Do we need something to keep this going in perpetuity? Do we need guardrails? Do we need X, Y, and Z? We have that in that open forum. That is an option that is on the table today. And again, as someone who signed on to those bills because I believe in that policy, if that's not what's on the floor today, then the next plan that does achieve a goal, not as long as some of us would want it for, but it does achieve a goal, is an option that we can pursue if we so choose to do that today. So trying to be pragmatic here, this is where I am today, and I want to also just once again say thank you to the finance chair here who's been willing to compromise, who is being open to not only listening to the other members here, but to the public as well. Let's find a way to move the ball forward. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Madam President.
Senator McGuire, the senator from Goochland.
Madam President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
First of all, I want to say, just to remind the Senate of a couple of things. There is a difference between an entitlement and a promise. I agree with my friend from Rockingham that if this was a bill, it would have never made it. And I hope that we will do a full repeal and talk about this more in January. But I also want to remind you that it was said that women did not serve in World War I. And women did serve in World War I. They served as stenographers, clerks, radio operators, messengers, truck drivers, ordnance workers, mechanics, cryptographers, and all other non-combat shore duty roles. They freed thousands of sailors to join the fleet and much more. And I just wanted to make that record clear. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the senator. The senator from Stafford, Senator Durant.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
I also agree with my colleague from Rockingham that had there been a bill, which we did have something that passed out of this body unanimously to take a look at how this program needs to move forward. We had that. And that passed out unanimously, but went over to the other chamber where it died in House Appropriations. It wasn't until we came through in the budget process, just as a reminder, that these significant changes were proposed from the body on the other side. And that's when my office, where I represent Stafford County, City of Fredericksburg, Spotswood, that has, as I said before, I don't think I can hardly hit one house to the next without having a family that has some connection in the veteran community that have been impacted. And they immediately said, we're hearing that there might be some significant changes. Now, the governor proposed that this not happen, that we go back to the work group that we all agreed on. And that was the chatter that we were hearing. We were going to do a work group. We were going to take a look at how we're going to sustain this because higher ed is saying this is getting expensive. Fine, let's take a look at it. Happy to do so. I raised my hand to give this citizen legislature extra time to serve on this task force so we can look at those parameters. We can ask those questions. The first task force was difficult, 5 hours. And they said, we want names. We want names, and we don't have names because if we had a bill and somebody put their name as the patron, and then others voted for it, they would have gotten absolutely shellacked, which is exactly what happened in that task force. We don't have names because there is no bill, and there is none today. It would have passed had it come into this body, but it didn't. I'm very frustrated by this, that this has deeply impacted me as a veteran family and those I represent who are here today, who've given their countless hours to say, what are we doing? Today we have no answer for them and their kids that are impacted. Their answer to us, if we're going to get into politics, are what is the cost of higher ed? Those are some of the questions they want to know. They look at billion-dollar endowments. They look at how much is the Commonwealth paying for residents who aren't legal, paying for their education. We're looking at all kinds of programs and wondering what's the return on the investment. That's what they're asking me. They want to know that. And that's what the task force is for. But in the meantime, you're asking in this body today to pit those who are Gold Star families against those who have maybe, unfortunately, not lost a family member, that have real injuries they're suffering with. They feel like they're being asked to pit against each other. And that community is saying, no, we stand together. That's their answer. We leave nobody behind. I would say to them, when I had a conversation with one of the family members who said, my husband, who is severely injured, feels like maybe he's better off not being here so he can be a part of that Gold Star family. That's unacceptable. We should be coming together today with an answer. And as the task force moves forward, we will come with the answers and how we're going to move forward. That's what should have happened today. Thank you very much, President.
Chair calls on the senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate now recess pursuant to HJR 6001 until reconvene with at least a 48-hour notice by the call of the chair of the Senate Committee on Rules.
The question is, shall the Senate recess pursuant to House Joint Resolution 6001 until reconvened with at least 48 hours notice by the call of the chair of the Senate Committee on Rules? All in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The chair is uncertain. This will be a senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Friday, June 21st, 2020. July, not June, not July, June. That we adjourn until Friday, June 21st, 2024 at 4 p.m. That's right, 4 p.m. That's 4 p.m.
Every 3 days.
The Senate will come to order. The question is, shall the Senate recess pursuant to House Joint Resolution 60?
Madam President, could we Madam President, can we go at ease for 1 second, please?
The Senate, without objection, will be at ease. The Senate will come to order. The Senate will come to order. The senators will take their seats. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. I shall restate it. The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 4 p.m. Friday, June 21st, 2024?
Madam President, I'd like to withdraw that motion.
Without objection, the motion is withdrawn.
Substitute motion, Madam President. I move
The senator from Hampton, from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Monday, July 1 at 1 p.m.
I am told that the senator may not do so.
That's what's on this paper.
Because that was the motion that was defeated.
That's what's on the paper.
Is that a new paper?
Madam President, shall I repeat my motion?
The senator may approach. The Senate stands at recess temporarily. Will come to order. Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Friday, June 21st at 2 p.m.
Madam President.
For what purpose does the senator from Rockingham rise?
The senator from Portsmouth yield for question.
Will the senator from Portsmouth yield?
I apologize, Madam President. Yes, I yield.
The senator yields. Senator from Rockingham has the floor.
Madam President, I would inquire of the senator from Portsmouth. Is it my understanding that we have an agreement that if we adjourn until the date specified, that it is agreed that we will be called back into session no later than July 1?
The senator from Portsmouth has the floor.
Madam President, I will respond to the gentleman that yes, that is exactly true.
Madam President, I thank the gentlelady from Portsmouth, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, sir.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until Friday, June 21st, 2024 at 2 p.m.? All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands adjourned until Friday, 2 p.m., June 21st, 2024.